Welcome to episode 11 of the Gooner Fanzine Arsenal Women podcast. Well, we finally can start planning our lives for the next 12 months because the Arsenal women fixtures are finally out. The WSL seem to take their time to get them all together, but the Gunners will begin their campaign at home to Manchester City. They'll end it at home to Manchester United, both games, two of eight in the league to be played at Emirates Stadium. Daisy Goodhand, tough start and a tough end, you have to say. And it's Miedema's reunion. That's going to be the headline.
Yeah, it almost feels a little bit scripted, doesn't it? It's a really tough start. I mean, obviously, if we look back to last season, we had that fixture at the Emirates, the Liverpool fixture that we maybe would have thought that we would win going back to the start of the season, but obviously we lost that and it proved to be quite tough. And absolutely, I would predict that this is going to be one of the toughest fixtures that we have, especially with the team that Manchester City are putting together at the moment. And I can't help but think about the end of the season, Manchester United. Obviously, we loved playing them at the Emirates, and it's one of the I thought one of the best games of last season. So I am excited for that. But obviously, that's a tough finish. And if it comes down to that final day, it will be interesting to see, having thought about Chelsea playing Manchester United, obviously in the final fixture of last season as well. So two very good fixtures that I'm looking forward to. But I definitely am nervous about that Manchester City one.
Yeah, exactly. Just a day under 2 months away. So it seems like a long time, when you look at the EFL, the Premier League, and how early their seasons start. Even Arsenal's Champions League qualifies early September, and that'll be a nice bit of preparation to go into that Manchester City game. It's always funny with fixtures, isn't it? Because you think, well, we're playing all the other 11 teams twice. Everyone's going to play each other home and away. But we get so fixated in when these games are, how it's going to affect each team. Where are you with it? Do you start getting worried already when you're looking at run-ins and stuff like that, or do you just look at from a fan's perspective, where are the good away days? Where have we got these teams, and where are we playing them as well? Because in the Premier League, you know exactly where all your away trips are. But you look at, Liverpool and Everton, and we're thinking, well, will this get moved? It's quite different in the women's game in terms of the away stadiums.
Yeah, I just look for the ones that I'm excited to go to and obviously plan that around. And I think a lot of people, I realized as well, look for their birthday. I noticed a couple of people were like, "Oh, who are we playing on my birthday?" And I did the same thing. And I think it's looking like on the Sunday, the day after my birthday, we're doing Brighton away. So that's a bit of a long trip for me being up north. But yeah, I do look for the away days. And I also think this is the big season, like you say, about this, like where will these games be played? Like obviously a couple of teams have confirmed it. We had the news about Aston Villa, which is super exciting as well. So there's some really like exciting stadiums that I'd like to go to as a fan, and that I haven't done before. Ones I'm looking forward to doing again, as well, like the Leicester City at King Power. That was a very good away day. I'm excited to see if certain teams do it at the bigger stadiums and see what happens with that. I know there's a few that haven't been confirmed yet. I'm interested to see about, Manchester United, Chelsea, even the other teams like that might choose to play at the bigger stadium. I think Liverpool was an interesting one. I'm interested to see if they choose to do that at Anfield. And I think obviously on everybody's mind will be that Everton away fiasco. And if they're going to finally choose to do it at Goodison Park, well, I think they're still at Goodison Park, aren't they, for the time being? But that would be really interesting, especially with the state for like just as a fan for the stadium, obviously not being there for very much longer as well. So I usually look at it from a fan perspective. Where are the North ones going to be? And also I'm just looking forward to being at the Emirates more and being in the new Block 10 atmosphere.
Yeah, let's have a look at these away ones. So, doing a bit of research yesterday, the sort of confirmed away venues where we can, start to plot out travel, I guess, with the exception of the TV schedule changes that we've all become used to. So, Leicester away, the first away game of the season is confirmed at the King Power. West Ham just seemed to play so few games at the London Stadium. There wasn't a single one last year. And it seems that they're sticking again to Dagenham and Redbridge, the Chigwell Construction Stadium, where Arsenal literally had fans snaking around the entire ground in what was a West Ham win back, I think, at the end of January or early Feb. Chelsea Arsenal again at Stamford Bridge after the calamity of last time with Sockgate and everything. We have to go back and revisit that part of London. And then, as you said, with Aston Villa playing all of their games at Villa Park, and what a ground that is to go to. And there's some really exciting ones in there. And King Power. I think we brought Leicester a record attendance when we went there in November. Our fans are just incredible, and the same applied at Villa Park. And both games, the home sides gave Arsenal a game, and it helped as well because the home fans, I think they know what Arsenal are going to bring in terms of atmosphere, and I think there's a little bit of impetus on them to start raising it and not wanting to look like the away team in their own backyard anymore.
Yeah, I think we had some really, really good away days and really loud crowds. And I was actually surprised at the King Power. That stood out to me because of the amount of people that were there. I mean, we filled an entire block from top to bottom, and that stood out to me. And I thought that Prenton Park when we went with to Liverpool away also was good, but I would be intrigued to see if they decide to do that at a different stadium. And I think the West Ham one is slightly disappointing in a way, not just because it's particularly Arsenal, but I think for them as a team, they should and hopefully will change their mind on some of those and playing them at the big stadium. I think, like you said, they were the only team not to do that for at least, one game. So I'm excited to see that as well. And I think Manchester United, that obviously we played the away game quite early last season, and they did that at Leeds Sports Village rather than Old Trafford. I know they did the derby at Old Trafford. I can't remember if they did Chelsea one there, I think as well. But
They did.
yeah, I can't remember exactly with some, but I'm excited to see, the choice of stadiums. And I think there will be some, like you say, there will be some fans that are a little bit intimidated by or maybe annoyed by the Arsenal situation. Obviously, with the Everton, we did take quite a significant amount of fans there, and there's not really the space, is there, for away fans? And that may be a reason why they choose to move it. But then again, you've got the other side of that. If we bring too many fans, maybe, teams do choose to do it in the smaller stadiums to prevent, away fans taking over. So I'm interested to see how teams manage that as well.
Yeah, Liverpool's an interesting one. So they've moved to St Helens,
Yeah.
which is closer to Wigan than it is to Liverpool itself. But that's a rugby league stadium, and it holds 18,000, which I think is a little bit of an upgrade on Tranmere, although I could stand corrected on that. And I'd imagine looking at 18,000 in terms of the attendances Liverpool have got, perhaps they will just stick to playing Everton at Anfield, and I think 18,000 does give it. It's a little bit like when Spurs moving on to sort of Leyton Orient rather than Barnet. It just gives you a little bit more space in terms of accommodating these bigger away attendances. Knowing it might not be a sellout every week, but you're just giving a little bit more room for that to happen. That's the final game before Christmas, Sunday, December the 15th. All of these games scheduled for Sundays. The first one is the only one we've had the kickoff time confirmed, and that'll be 12:30. As you pointed out, Arsenal women, Man City women, 12:30 kickoff. I think we'll all be going to the Tollington and various other Arsenal pubs to watch the men's game at the Etihad, Man City men against Arsenal. I mean, what a day that could or could not be.
Yeah, another exciting scheduling that they've clearly worked on as well. I think you mentioned also about there's a Leicester one as well that's on the same weekend. I think that's obviously a bit of a coincidence, but I'm super excited for those kind of fixtures because I think that just makes the atmosphere, doesn't it? Obviously, last season we really did the pre and post match on another level, especially. I'm excited to see how that develops at the Emirates, having played more games there. We had the cup final, which was an incredible sort of pre-match atmosphere as well. So that definitely plays into it. And yeah, I'm just really excited to see how that builds with the fixtures that have come out. And yeah, there's some really exciting ones in there, and I think that's going to be it's going to be one to look out for.
Well, Arsenal will open their season in the Champions League at Meadow Park with those two qualifying games. And three games, it's a bit of a wooden spoon award, isn't it, in terms of the teams who Arsenal will play at Meadow Park. They'll obviously be looking to spring an upset for Crystal Palace in January, West Ham in March, and Leicester in April. Now, Leicester obviously we played at the Emirates last year, and now have been moved to Meadow Park. Do you almost feel sorry for these teams who've got to come back to Meadow Park? There's so many games now at the Emirates, 8 out of the 11 WSL home games, but a few of the smaller sides have still got to be shunted down to Meadow Park, which of course the Arsenal fans will love, but it's maybe a little bit of a weird one for those away teams.
Yeah, I'm curious. I'd love to know about how they decided that because I think there was obviously that there's going to be those three games, maybe a little bit of like a prediction from our end about what they were going to be. But I think they're obviously chosen purposeful. When we knew that they were going to do like 8 games at the Emirates, I think the first thing that we said last season was about Manchester City. That stood out that didn't get played at the Emirates, whereas Leicester got chosen. So I think maybe the Leicester reasoning could be explained by the Emirates game already being played there. I mean, it's unfortunate, yeah, because certain teams did have to miss out, and I think that would just be potentially considered as potentially the I don't want to say the easier games because that is ironic with that West Ham game being the one that we lost, but they're obviously looking at things in terms of the bigger games like the ones that might mean more to the season. But then again, we can never say that with Arsenal, can we? Because those smaller games like they broke our season in the end. So it is a tough one, and I think that would have been considered in it as well. And unfortunately, it was just three that had to miss out, and it wouldn't have been one of the bigger teams, so to say, would it, that they would have chosen for that. So yeah, that is. I think it will only grow, won't it? And potentially next season we'll be looking at all of them being played at the Emirates, but that's obviously not something that we can decide right now.
Yeah, and the Meadow Park, fan experiences, of course, some of the Conti Cup, FA Cup games as well are going to be there. So there are going to be more games than just those three. And, as we've said plenty of times before, that we are really looking forward to those Champions League games. So I did ask a couple of people on Twitter to send in their favourite fixtures, the ones they're looking forward to the most this season. Liberty Simons, of course, one of our Gooner writers, says United at home, ending the season at the Emirates. That's excellent. Crystal Palace away, new opponents. Who knows what's in store? I can't remember off the top of my head where Palace play, but that's definitely one where they might look to maybe move it to Selhurst Park. And of course, the last time Arsenal went there was for that Conti Cup final when they beat Chelsea.
Yeah, that would be incredible. That's another one to look at, like stadium wise. And I completely agree, obviously, with Liberty on that one. I was going to say actually, Manchester United at home at the Emirates stood out to me as one of my favourite Emirates games. That's just, yeah, the result, the atmosphere. You've got to credit Manchester United. They bring a great away following. I think that obviously played into the reason why that was the record attendance. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that was the highest of them all, was that Manchester United one. And yeah, I'm super excited for that one too. And Palace, yeah, obviously coming up from the Championship, we know that they've been a very confident attacking style team. They've done extremely well. It's a new opponent, and that could definitely be one that throws a spanner in the works for Arsenal, knowing our sort of track record with those kind of games. It's maybe one that, we'd be looking at and saying that's actually quite, I know it sounds crazy to say, but that's actually quite a nervy one. I don't know if you agree on that as well.
Yeah, Palace coming up, and there's a lot of unknown because of the sort of player turnover they've had as well. But just having a look now, I had Bromley in my head as the ground, but of course that's where London City Lionesses have moved to. Palace continuing at Sutton United, where of course Arsenal men years and years and years ago at that FA Cup game. So it's one that a few fans will have been to. Quite a nice one to get to, I think, actually in that corner of London. They won 8 out of 10 home games there last season, and they start their season away to Tottenham, which will be a really interesting marker of how Palace are doing. Another fan getting in touch, Elsie at Elsie Heather on Twitter, for said home Manchester City and Leicester away. I really want to visit the King Power and haven't done a Leicester away day yet, but also Crystal Palace away will be an exciting one. So people liking these London derbies. I've also gone for City at home, first day of the season. The Champions Leagues will be a lovely warm up, and hopefully, obviously, we'll get through to the next round of qualifying. But getting back to the Emirates after a long summer is going to be a lot of fun, and then getting out of that, hopefully it'll be a quick Jonas press conference and we're all straight to the pub after to hopefully watch us turn over, Pep Guardiola's side. And then for me, Leicester away, I've checked already in my cricket schedule, Leicestershire are at home against Derbyshire, my team. So it's going to be, hopefully, if that's an evening kickoff again, I can get cricket from about 11 till 4 potentially, and then head to the King Power. Leicester is a good sporting city actually in terms of the stadium. So that'll be a nice one. What are you looking forward to? I think City's going to be top of everyone's mind for the next 2 months.
Yeah, City's one that I'm on the fence with because of the way that we want to start the season. I think we want to start the season on a high, and there's no doubt that there are people that are already writing us off in that game. And I still think that we could go into that and really go for it. I think we will. I think obviously, like you say, we've got those pre-season games that are going to help us get into the rhythm that we didn't really have as much last season. So that will play into it. For me, one that stands out is Chelsea away, and I'm obviously thinking about last season. We obviously went into that before the whole Sockgate thing, quite optimistic, having played them at the Emirates, beat them 4-1. We were in really good sort of mindset before that game. So I am excited to see how that goes. I think that's one that we could definitely work on. And that could have, have a massive impact on how the season goes. I think we're obviously always looking at those big games and thinking about those. I'm not going to pick out all of them, but I'm thinking about the North London derbies. Like they were really, really good last season. Obviously, we had a 50-50, lost one, won one, same result. So I'm excited to see how they play out. And obviously, Tottenham are only going to get better. They've just announced about obviously the Robert Villaham contract extension. So the Tottenham are only building something there. And obviously, the North London derby results mean everything to the fans, don't they? Because that's such a big result to get. And obviously, we were so disappointed having lost that one as well. I think I'll just obviously quickly just point out West Ham obviously were the ones that sort of messed up our season a little bit and we didn't perform well there. And I think it will be interesting to see how different that is this season. I think a lot of people have pointed to West Ham as their favourites to get relegated, and part of that is because of their players, the players that they've lost already, and the players that they haven't brought in just yet. They have had some signings, so you know you don't want to write them off completely, but it could be they've lost some key players in there, haven't they? Obviously, goalkeeper, they've lost a lot of their back line, so that is a really interesting one as well. I mean, you could go on all day, couldn't you, about all of the ones that you're looking forward to. I always point out the northern ones for me, but yeah, definitely a couple of away days that I enjoyed last season and a couple of new stadiums as well that I'm looking forward to visiting.
Let's throw some dates for your diary then. Those North London derbies, surely Tottenham Hotspur will be back at their main stadium as they were last year. Away there on the Sunday, the 17th of November. The reverse fixture is at the Emirates, the 16th of February. You touched on that Chelsea game at Stamford Bridge. And before that, we've only got one game after the winter break. That's Crystal Palace at Meadow Park. So obviously it's going to be a big challenge to come back from the winter. Palace at Meadow Park, then Chelsea, and then the next two away to Manchester City, at the moment down for the Joy Stadium. Obviously, that could change. And then home to Tottenham, home to West Ham, and then that trip to Everton. So that Chelsea game, it's one of those if you win and you can then kick on, and go and beat Manchester City just the following week, that's a massive week in the season already to point out.
Yeah, I think, there's a when you look through the fixtures this season, especially with the competitiveness of the league constantly like increasing, I'm looking through and I'm thinking, where's the easy fixture? Because there really just isn't any. You cannot predict it. Last season sort of proved that a little bit with the games. We never really had sort of a really easy game, I wouldn't say. Obviously, the cups, the FA Cup, Conti Cup, they'll all play into that as well. And we just seem like we've got so many exciting games to look forward to. But the season just seems when you put it on a list like that, just so not so little games, but you know what I mean? It just seems like quite a small list in terms of this is what stands between us and a memorable season. So there's so many to look forward to. And I think looking towards the end of the season, I'm looking at those sort of April fixtures. We've got Leicester at home at Meadow Park on the 20th and Villa away on the 27th. That could be the make or break part of the season. I haven't looked into, Chelsea City, their fixtures. I'm interested to see what their fixtures are like towards the end of the season, because if we look to Manchester City last season away when Arsenal came back with that Stina Blackstenius goal, I think that's the part of the season that's so critical, isn't it? And it's interesting to see who has the tougher run. I know you mentioned Manchester United have a tough run as well, so that could be something that we could look into a little bit more. Who's got that tough sort of end to the season? Obviously Manchester United on the last day is difficult as well, but yeah.
Even going to Villa, a couple of weeks before that is a possible banana skin. And as we touched on before, there's the Conti Cup, FA Cup, Champions League that can all come into it closer to the time, which obviously we don't really factor in at the moment. But Leicester at Meadow Park, then Villa away, and then a couple of weeks before Man United at the Emirates. I mean, it would be a sweet way to win the WSL, doing it against Manchester United. The optimist side of me definitely looks at it that way. And so, yeah, we'll have to wait and see. I feel like we've spoken about Viv Miedema a lot, on this podcast in the last couple of months, and even almost even more so since she's left the club. But just because of what the fixture computer, if there is one, has thrown up. We've got to talk about it. The atmosphere, the reception she's going to get when she returns to the Emirates. The fan base has seen that division, obviously, when she has left, when that decision came about, and then her subsequent interviews, sort of delving into how she made that decision. How do you think she will be received in the first game of the season?
If I was to guess, and based on my own personal opinion and those that I've like spoken to about it, I would say positively. I mean, there was obviously so much respect for her towards the end of last season when she left and she had that goodbye at Meadow Park as well. I think, I would really, really hope that she gets that positive reception. I think it may be a little bit bittersweet in a way. And obviously, if she scores, that does change things a little bit as well. So that will be a tough one to take, I can imagine, for a lot of fans. But I look back to the start of last season when obviously Russo had just joined Arsenal. We went to Manchester City away. I was one of the ones that Manchester United away, sorry, the one of the ones that I did, and that negative reception was strange. And I can understand maybe a little bit like the reasonings, but the way that they did it, I mean, it was just what I'm trying to say is I don't see that having a similar doing a similar
And
thing.
Arsenal fans called that out as well. They weren't
Yeah.
happy with that, and you have to. I guess if you're going to hold standards, and some people won't care. They'll say football is football, and you're going to get sick from the crowd, try and put players off, but I think you can't really have it both ways. And of course, Russo was snapped up by Arsenal, and Miedema, has had a long time to think about departing. You can't give a player a great reception when they leave and then moan about their next club, because in an ideal world, we want her to go somewhere where she can't affect Arsenal. But Viv Miedema is a great player. There's every chance she's going to help Manchester City, to do something well against Arsenal on the first day of the season. And that's just how football is. Players move on. Jill Roord is probably another who's going to be looking to impact the game. There's a couple in that City side. I mean, even Chloe Kelly wore Arsenal colours before, but we'll never talk about her. Even Jill Roord, we're going to almost forget was a former Arsenal player because all the attention is going to be on Miedema. It's going to be really interesting, but it's storylines like this that's why football's so popular.
Yeah, I think we saw the storyline, didn't we, when she scored in that last game of the season and things like that. They do happen. It would just be the way that football is if she was to score at the Emirates. But obviously, I don't want I'm comparing it a little bit to the Russo situation because I see a little bit of similarities. I think we're still waiting for Russo to score for Arsenal against Manchester United, if I'm correct. So that obviously is another one that you could compare and look to. Sometimes it doesn't always work out the way that you want it to. She hit the crossbar in the away game when they were all booing her. So it could be a similar situation. I expect Viv would probably play that game. I expect her to start. I expect Gareth Taylor to use her in that way to
Fired
intimidate
up. She'll
Arsenal.
be fired up, won't she?
Exactly, yeah. And there's a lot of unknown sort of parts of the story that we haven't quite figured out. And there's a lot of different elements to that. Obviously, rumors that she wanted to leave before. So you expect her to be yeah, she is a professional person. She will go into that game and be thinking only one thing, and that is, as any player should, get that result for Manchester City. So what we need to focus on is the exact opposite. Let's focus on the players that obviously we have got. And at the end of the day, it would be a fantastic start to the season, wouldn't it, if Arsenal were to beat Manchester City at the Emirates?
Yeah, I saw a video yesterday of Keir Starmer calling Rishi Sunak Prime Minister, and suddenly remembering it was the other way around. And I think Viv walking into the Emirates is going to be a little bit like that. Which dressing room she walks into, accidentally going into the home one and turning around again. And yeah, again, as we touched on the other week, I wonder if her dog will be in attendance with a half and half scarf around its neck. But we'll have to see.
Yeah, definitely. And I think like after the game, it'll be interesting to see, won't it, depending on the result, sort of, after the game when former players, come back and she'll obviously have respect for the Arsenal fans. There's no doubt about that. But between the players, if Arsenal are to lose that game, how will that impact sort of the after game sort of, when they all come together and speak to each other and obviously there'll be a lot of people who want to say hi to her as well. So let's hope there's sort of some respect on that level and let's just remain professional with it all. And I think the idea for both teams is that result. And also just quickly to mention, I just noticed relating back to the end of the season with Manchester City and their results, they've got Man United in a derby on the 4th of May, which is quite late in the season. Obviously, they have typically had a good run with the derbies, but that could also impact. They have got Palace on the last day. And Everton and Leicester in April. So you would say they've got some somewhat I would say easier. No fixtures are easy, but they've got somewhat easier fixtures. But the derby, that might be an interesting one to look at. Although no Manchester United's record, it maybe not maybe not going to go the way that you'd want it to if it was in a title race at that point in the season. Haven't had a chance to look at Chelsea's yet, but I'm sure they've got some difficult fixtures in that last run in as well.
Yeah, the way the WSL is, there's no easy games, and you only have to look back to Chelsea away at Liverpool towards the end of last
Yeah.
season. The twists and turns of that title race, it was absolutely fantastic. And one last thing on the Miedema situation. I mean, how we're playing Man City and Stina Blackstenius' name hasn't been mentioned. That just shows how much, attention Miedema is getting because Blackstenius, her record against him is incredible. Those two late goals away in Manchester a few months ago. So she's definitely one who City will have to be keeping their closest eye on.
Yeah, what a bittersweet feeling when Stina scored away. I mean, we all celebrated, don't get me wrong, but obviously with the implications that it had in the title race, I am excited for Stina to hopefully get a chance. I know that Jonas Adval will be looking at that and thinking the impact that she has in those games, like you say, her record. I really hope that she gets to make an impact in that first game of the season. Obviously, just signed the contract. We're forgetting that too. Just signed the contract extension, bouncing back. We've got new players coming in. Who knows what that starting lineup will look like? But I imagine that they'll definitely incorporate Stina Blackstenius into that game, and it would be fantastic for her to have an impact.
Nice quiet summer for her as well. Obviously, she's missed these international games due to injury. She's recovering, with Arsenal, and then Sweden aren't involved in the Olympics. So give her quite a nice long opportunity to really get some work in on the training ground, go away on the pre-season tour. And that's good to see. Let's continue on then with the Olympics. Seven Arsenal players looking to be involved. The most obviously coming from Australia, Arsenal's three Aussies. We've got Emily Fox from America, Chloe Lacasse from Canada, who's also wearing the number 6 shirt, which we touched on with Miedema, which looks very strange. Of course, she is known as 24 Lacasse from the chant as well. So no, number 6 is very weird. And then the two Spaniards in Laia Cadena and the new signing Mariona Caldente. Going to be a fun tournament. Looking across the three groups, there's so much quality there as you'd expect. I mean, the fact Team GB are missing out and the likes of Sweden as well just shows you how good it is.
Yeah, some really big names missing out. Like obviously you mentioned those two there, the Netherlands obviously not going as well. So I think if we're looking at the teams that are in there, there is still a high level of competitiveness, isn't there? Obviously, Canada's record, they've won gold. You got the US under a new manager in Emma Hayes. And I think if we're looking at predictions at this point, it is too difficult to call. Obviously, there's some, I would say that out of the groups that we looked at earlier, Group C, potentially your easier one, you've got Spain, who are world champions. I would expect them to be absolute, favourites for that tournament as well. So looking at the Arsenal players, I am excited to see like who makes an impact, who's involved. As Lacasse is one that comes in and out of that side a little bit. So that's one to look at. I like that you're Emily Fox America. I'm not sure that if you said it like that on purpose, but yeah, I think she's one to look at. She does play majority of the games, doesn't she, for the US? And I'd like to see if she has an impact in those games. I can imagine she does. And new signing as well. Obviously, Mariona's one that I'll be keeping an eye on. She usually has an impact for Spain, and usually plays. So that's one that I'm potentially looking forward to as well. And obviously with the Aussies, we've got to keep an eye on those injuries. I was thinking that before actually, because I know they mentioned about both Ford and Catley potentially not being fit for those games. Haven't heard much on that front. I'm not sure if you have, but it's interesting to see if they're involved and how much they can play a role with those injuries. And also, managing them ready for the start of the season as well.
Yeah, they're right. It's a busy tournament. Of course, the Olympics, all the games are squeezed into quite a close period of time. First round on the 25th. 3 days later, they go again, and then another 3 days for the next round of fixtures, and then another 3 days before those quarterfinals. 3 days before every round of games. Then there's the bronze medal match. Then, obviously, with it being the Olympics and the gold medal match as well. So it's a long tournament squeezed into quite a short space of time. So certainly rotation will be key. And as Arsenal fans, we'll be keeping a close eye on that, of course. You're going to be heading out there for a little bit as well to France. I mean, I'm there at the same time, but purely for a holiday. You're going out to watch some football.
I'm going out for both. I'm going to enjoy that holiday and then I'm going to well, obviously I'm doing Paris first. So yeah, I'm going out well, I've got tickets to the quarterfinal game. So potentially some Arsenal players in there. That's obviously one of the main reasons why after I obviously booked it before the Team GB didn't get in it, but I'm still looking forward to seeing some potentially Australia, depending on how they do in the group, potentially Spain as well if they somehow don't top that group. So some exciting, and also there's a bunch of exciting teams in there as well. It's just great to watch women's football, isn't it? I mean, whoever you get, you can expect it's going to be a good game. Let's just hope it's not a 0-0.
Yeah, first games this Thursday. It's come around really quickly, actually, the
Yeah.
Olympics. This Thursday, Spain, Japan, Canada, New Zealand, Nigeria, Brazil, Germany, Australia, France, Colombia, and USA, Zambia. So I guess the ones that stand out in terms of the Arsenal ones, Spain, Japan, for those two players, Canada and Lacasse against New Zealand, and then the three Aussies against Germany. And then the late game, USA against Zambia. Emma Hayes will be keeping an eye on her, and Emily Fox. The next round, Brazil, Japan, New Zealand, Colombia, Spain, Nigeria, Australia, Zambia, USA, Germany, and France, Canada, and then finally Japan, Nigeria, Brazil, Spain, Zambia, Germany. Four Arsenal players potentially in this one: Australia, the USA, Colombia, New Zealand, and New Zealand, Colombia, Canada, sorry, and New Zealand v France. The final, the gold medal match, is Saturday, the 10th of August. So a real feast, really, of women's football in quite a short space of time with Olympic gold, silver, and bronze to play for. It's a little bit of a different way, in terms of what we're used to in football. We're not used to these bronze, silver, gold, and all that, and winning medals, of course, for your country that goes to a different tally. You're bigger, you're part of something a lot bigger for these players, and I'd love to know, how this compares for them compared to a World Cup or a Euros. I'm sure it's right up there.
Yeah, I think we saw, I don't know if everybody else saw, but there was that Steph Catley video interview that she did about the Olympics, and she talked on, the importance of being in the Olympics to her career and being an Olympian. And I think obviously if we look at historically, women's football was the Olympics was always major. I think that was obviously before the bigger tournaments and the growth of women's football that we've seen in the league. But I think it's always going to have that, important part. I think everybody sort of will be tuning in for their players from their clubs. It's a little bit more difficult when you haven't got a team in there, obviously with Team GB not going. So it gives you a chance, doesn't it, to almost be a neutral in a way. Like for me, I'm just looking forward to watching some good football and obviously praying that there's no major injuries in there for any of the Arsenal girls. But I think it could be a really big summer for those players as well to see how they perform and then obviously go into club football and hopefully bring some good form into those games as well.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. And it's one of the events is actually starting before the opening ceremony, I think, which is on Friday, and they're
Yeah.
doing it down the River Seine. Where are you? Where's the game that you're going to? Is it in Paris or is it elsewhere?
It's in Paris. It's at the I think it's at the PSG stadium.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah, so it's a really good one. Obviously, with those when you book tickets ahead, you're not going to know who you're going to get, but it doesn't bother us too much. Because yeah, it's just an incredible place to be, especially with the Olympics being on as well in the city. And just going out there and just enjoying the time there. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that.
Absolutely. How's your French? Uh,
Oh, not so good, not so good.
okay.
I
Yeah.
might just get on Duolingo this week to try and learn some basic phrases, I think.
Yeah, I might have to be the same. There's a bit there from school, but certainly not too much. Well, hope you have a great time out there. We'll of course be keeping an eye on your social media. Let's plug that actually while you're here, because I'm sure fans will be wanting to see your experiences. We've got Leif over in LA, doing the men's pre-season tour. We've got you in Paris for a little bit of Olympic football.
Yeah, I'm up. Yeah, I mean, I'll put it all out on Twitter. I usually use Twitter for most of the stuff, but I'm going to try and do a few sort of summaries where I can for the Guna. So obviously they'll have all the Guna. If you have the Guna Twitter, follow them over on there. The website, I'll try and put an article out on there too, as well. So there'll be so much content going out. And I'll try and post a few photos on Instagram and things like that. So yeah, there's plenty of content going out, isn't there?
Absolutely. Well, I'll be here on Thursday to watch, and then from Sunday for the next round of games, I'll be watching whenever I can on French TV, which is exactly what I was doing for the Women's World Cup last year. Apart from these games, will be much more sensible kickoff times, which I have to say I'm looking forward to. Daisy, enjoy your time out in France. Great to talk about the fixtures. It still feels like a long way away the season, but we're snaking ever closer, and you must be looking forward to getting out to France for a bit of Olympic action.
Yeah, super excited. Obviously, going to be great summer. And then yeah, now I've got the fixtures. I'm just excited for the new season. So not too long to go now, but yeah, super excited.